Welcome to the Iron Will podcast, where we talk about overcoming adversity and challenges, creating the life we truly want, and how we use iron therapy to improve our mind and body. No matter what life throws at us, we need to develop an iron will to push through whatever stands in the way to becoming the very best version of ourselves. It's never too late, but now is the time for action. Welcome to episode 206 of the Iron Will podcast, Looking Back. This was a strange week for me at home. My 18-year-old, my son, my oldest, was home from reading week from university. He's in his first year. And he goes to school about 3.5 hours away from here, which is good. We wanted him to get out and get on his own and experience life a bit. And we were talking about just life and some of the challenges that he's facing. And, it's a couple things came to mind is at 51 years old, we have the advantage of being able to look back on things. At 18 years old, we can only look what's right in front of our face. We don't have a lot of runway to look back on. But at our age, if you're over 40 or over 50, we've got lots of runway to look at. There's lots to look over our shoulder and look at how things happen and how we dealt with things and how things really worked out. And it's always interesting to have those conversations when there's, that generation gap. Because we know certain things at this stage in our life that you can't quite comprehend when you're younger. And it always falls to the point, too, that no matter what you're going through, you feel it's tough. The toughness feels like, no one understands it, no one gets it. And, when you're younger, and even when we're older, when things are going well, we don't fully appreciate it. The things that stand out for us more tend to be the hardships and the difficulties and the challenges and the disappointments. And that's just part of life. That's what happens. As we get older, ideally, we get better at dealing with those things, avoiding some of those things just because we're making smarter choices, we're in a better place. But also understand that when tough times come and situations come, that they will pass. We will get through it. As I mentioned a few episodes ago, talking about how dealing with closing the gym and moving on to the other brand, we're still knee deep in that. But there's time that's gone by. There's water under the bridge. And knowing that and having even the benefit of being the age I am, I knew, like I said earlier, that in 30 days things would be better. In 60 days things would be better. In 90 days things will be better. Because we know often it's just about putting a distance between us and the things that are affecting us in a negative way. But it's also the fact that we also have a pool of resources as we're older. We know how to get things done. We understand things. We have some financial resources. We have tactical resources. We have connection resources. These are things we don't have when we're younger, or we don't think we have when we're younger. I was trying to explain to my son the difference between when I was his age and his age. When I was 18, there was no residence. I had to have my own place to live, and I had to pay for it. There was no free car. There was no food plan. Right? There was no money set up for his education, for my education. But however, the struggles that he's still going through are very real. They're very real to him. And that's the one thing we have to, I think, remember, that when we're dealing with people, when we're interacting with people, is that sometimes it's easy for us to scoff at what they're going through and going, Jesus, I wish that was my only problem. But we have to remember that for them, that is their problem. For us, our problems are often bigger than they really are. They appear bigger. Objects in the mirror, are bigger than they really are. And I think that's the one thing that we get hopefully better at dealing with, is learning to minimize the size of those things, take action on those things. And quite often taking action on those situations allows us to breathe a little bit better. We can't solve it immediately, but we're moving towards a solution. But we don't know that when we're 18. We don't know that when we're 20. Even if we did know it, we don't fucking believe it because we haven't experienced it. But that's the one thing we need to do at our age, though, is understand and be more self-reliant on ourselves and say, listen, I made it this far. No one gets to be 50 years old and hasn't had some shit to deal with. So we've got some scars. We've got some medals. Hopefully we're getting better at it. We're getting good at avoiding the drama that we would go through if we were doing a repetitive cycle. We talked about breaking a cycle last time. At the end of the day, how we handle a situation is totally up to us. It doesn't mean it still doesn't hurt. Doesn't mean that it still isn't difficult. But it is up to us on how we move forward on it, how we deal with it. And that's the one thing that we need to remember. And I think that's the one thing we need to show our younger people, especially if we have children or nieces and nephews. We have to lead by example. Quite often, we'll do more for others than we will for ourselves. We find we'll put more importance on helping other people than we put on the importance of helping ourselves. I know that's been something that I'm working on, is to put myself first in many things. Not selfishly, but understand that if I don't put myself first, if I don't make myself a priority in my health, in my mental stability state, in my physical health, in my financial health, in my business, if I don't put myself first, no one's going to do it. When we're younger, though, especially the generations that we're coming from now, that we're breeding, that we're creating, we're giving it all to them. And it's hard not to be frustrated, but we have to understand we also created that by giving our kids much more than we had. So how are we shocked when they feel entitled? How are they shocked when they finally run into a small hurdle and they're just exasperated how to deal with it? Because we protected them for too long, too much. Gotta let those little fuckers fall. Little Johnny should get fired if he's being an ass at work. Little Susie should get a failing mark on the exam if she didn't pass it and didn't show up to class. We just finished some parent-teacher stuff from my 16-year-old in grade 11. And the way they do it now is that you get a letter of concern if they want to see you at parent-teacher night. But we never wait for that. When there's a parent-teacher night for our kids, we always show up. We show up because we want to see what our kids are up to. We want the school to know that we're there, and our focus is that our kids get the best education they can, and we're there to help them, help the kids. But we're also there to help the school and help the teachers. We're expecting that standard on both sides of the fence. We're expecting that standard from our child to work harder, and we're expecting that standard from the teacher to understand that there's some parents there that are keeping an eye on things. So everybody's on notice. What I don't want to have happen, my wife and I have agreed on this from the get-go, is we don't want to wait till halfway through the year to find out that, our little Johnny or our little Susie isn't doing well. Because it's a lot harder to make things up at that point. There's a lot of momentum going the wrong way. And that's the same way that it should be for everything that we do. If we're paying attention and we notice something's up, our gut reaction, this doesn't seem right. This looks weird. Then we need to listen to that. We need to become more proactive. Because it's a lot easier to deal with things that are difficult in the beginning before they become bigger than once the fucking shit hits the fan and everything's collapsing around you. It's a lot tougher to deal with stuff that way. But it's normal, right? We want to put our head in the sand a bit. We want to ignore it. Or we procrastinate. I'll get to it. I'll deal with it. I'll make that phone call tomorrow. Tomorrow's often too late. Hopefully at our age, we've come to realize that. And if we're not able to, stay on top of those things, then we should be working on those things. One of the things I'm trying to do, with the rebuilding of the company and the brand, is do it in a way that I leave behind old habits that didn't work well, old ideologies that didn't work well. It's a chance to cleanse. It's a chance to, get rid of the things that weren't working, focus on the things that were, but also going into that next incarnation, Just fucking be better at doing it. But that's the benefit of looking back. That's the benefit of the comment they say, the hindsight is 2020. We have enough runway to look back and see how we've handled things and decide if that's how we want to continue to do things or if we want to make changes on how we do that. Part of the patience as a parent, we have to sit back and watch our kids and let our kids just go through stuff. Let them make some poor choices. Wisdom doesn't come because we were just born with it. Wisdom comes because we made poor choices and we suffered the consequences of it. So at the end of the day, we can only become wise if we gotten the shit kicked out of us along the way. We can only become wise if we look back at those experiences and say, hey, I don't want those to repeat anymore. Moving forward, we always have to look back to see how we've been coming, how we've been doing. How did we get there? How did I show up on a Tuesday at 10 a.m.? What got me here this week, this month, this quarter, this year? Especially if you don't like where you're at a Tuesday at 10 a.m. We are the sum total of all the rituals and all the things that we do, all the habits that we have. That's where we are today. When we look in the mirror, physically, mentally, financially, spiritually, we're there because of the things we've been doing, the habits, how we currently think, how we currently carry out our lives, what time we get up, what time we go to bed, how we eat, how we sleep, how we talk to people, how we take care of our bodies, how we pay attention to details, how well we do our job or run our business. All those things add up. And when we look in the mirror, we are the sum total. We represent all of that. So if we don't like what we're seeing in the mirror on any level or on all levels, then we have to look back and see how we've been doing things, how we've been getting things done or not getting things done. What have we been doing that's not working well? What have we been avoiding that's not working well? And what has been working well? You got to build that column. Take a piece of paper, run a line down the middle, good on the left side, bad on the right side, and just start writing it down. Start purging, do a brain dump. That's how we figure things out. Looking back. That's all I have to say on that for now, guys. Head on over to Iron House Gear. Get yourself a really cool looking back hoodie. Use the code word IRONWILL. Save 20%. And as always, guys and girls, work hard, motherfuckers. And I'll talk to you guys later.